pentagram right, I saw lines of pink and lines of purple forming all sorts of patterns and shapes all about. With the first set of vibrations, I saw pink hills. With the second set, I saw these more defined, with winding, curvy pathways of purple in between. With the third, the shadows bulged and pulsed in and out. With the fourth, that stopped and the shadows straightened and extended much further than their objects, like the mirror stand having like shadows out here, and likewise for the other dimensions. Then I felt like a breeze go through me and a pulsing. During the final reading, I felt like I was not putting weight on the floor anymore. During the final scrying, I saw some sort of orange fruit, and it did remind me of oranges, but it was not a citrus fruit. It reminded me of breadfruit, but it wasn't. It reminded me of pomegranate, but it wasn't. And counterclockwise, the world, a cloudy mist of a neon green, partly, but for the most part it was just solid white. And this kind of spiraled outwards and expanded to fill the room, or it even seemed like existence. And it was like from the corners of the mirror, overlapping, like at times, you know what I mean? This line would go over here and this line would go over there. And so from the mirror and some other objects, there was different colored lines of light that seemed to go outwards. But it seemed like there was a comfortable darkness up above during parts of the verses or text of the book that I'm about to bounce some ideas off of. A readiness comes for us to connect to nature, to make physical contact. It leads us to name things, to use sacred names, to dress in a way that illustrates our spirituality. For example, some may choose to wear blue on a Thursday, or purple on a Wednesday, red on a Tuesday, white on a Monday, yellow on a Sunday, black on a Saturday, or green on a Friday. Planting and harvesting becomes a sacred act, an act that invokes and evokes. Connect to tree consciousnesses. Illustrate your principles in stone. Realize the symbolism connecting fruit and breasts. Don't just mark out the positions of the sun and the moon throughout the seasons are the 8 directions. Form a connection to the specific forms via shapes and energies of the particular land that you are operating in. Figure out what is most natural for your area and what would be most productive in your area when you do grow. Experience the connection between the heavens, the earth, and underneath. Each involves the other, and each can be used to represent the other. Specific shapes and divisions can be used to represent the greater cosmos. See yourself as projecting or drawing in the various star and planet patterns. Perhaps the fear of the spirit world was because the spirit world was neglected, with certain implications of the church that was, causing the avoidance of the relationships that once were. The idea of the sacred feminine is something to have a relationship with rather than just something to have power over. Much like all male patriarchal godheads, tend to lead people to think that we're supposed to, subdue or turn from nature. We can become satisfied in nature. The woman is seen as the throne or what's on the throne. Like, for example, you can think of the tarot as the aces are the thrones of the princesses, are in some ways of thinking the princess is like off the throne, but, directing the throne somewhat, because like a father figure. The mysteries could be said to originate from women stepping aside because they didn't want to bleed on or otherwise cause issues with the common areas. So they went off alone and they regrouped based on what they were hearing and witnessing throughout the rest of the month, or in terms of post-childbirth separation again. We can think of things, to rephrase something else, in terms of 3 commandments. Is you honor your family, that you worship divinity, and you protect the animals and the other material creation. Yeah, they talk about cow protection and stuff in India and all that. It's like, well, that's because the rich people got to sacrifice and eat the animals. It wasn't that they were vegetarian. Certainly, Feraferia is actually one of those vegetarian sorts of groups, but not everybody is in that group. The path is not just about music, drugs, sex, and dance. It involves the spiritual side and a mentality that enhances any such things that one would take part in. You can celebrate the beauty of things and acknowledge the conflict and work that out towards an overall peace. There's a different opinion of the so-called rape of Persephone. Although, you do come across that context because you do find the idea that she did, agree to marry Pluto. And why, in the story. Now I've heard of incidences myself of this one guy was raped until the point where he did marry the woman who did it. And yeah, that sort of thing is actually more common than it used to be the other way around. Society's gotten that bad. It is important that each learns to use their energies, to connect their energies, much like the whole Devata thing, with what you call Hindu religion, although that's a whole bunch of different types of religion, but and this can be done in indulgence and abstinence. It's not that an individual has to be dirty or sterile. Everything can be worked with. Frederick Adams befriended various individuals in the field. He connected to Robert Graves and Timothy Leary and some other individuals. Published over 50 of the Corathalia newsletter, which that sounds like something I'd like to read at some point. I did look at the Church of Hermetic Science stuff, and this is how I heard of Feraferia in the first place, is the Church of Hermetic Sciences, Ordo Templi Astartes. And, he writes a foreword in here, and there's reference of how a lot of people found out about Frederick Adams or were connected to him through Poke Runyon, and how the term sister order, but I really think it's brother order. So Feraferia is the sister, and the Church of Hermetic Sciences is the brother. And I don't just mean that because of the gender involved. It's like, yeah, he founded Feraferia, but it's, closer to the whole matriarchic thing. Although, obviously the cultures that were referenced, the Greeks and all that, they were patriarchies, but they were patriarchies that, unlike the standard Christendom view, balanced the male and the female. And the female wasn't inherently condemned. Like when they call women to be modest in the Bible, they don't do it respectfully, and that's why, for the most part, it's dropped off. And if a woman wants to be modest and part of some Abrahamic religion, she's probably going to become Muslim. Or she's going to become Muslim under the idea of, why, was this commanded, but the only people following it is this. The same thing with some other stuff, right? It's good to come up with ideas of architecture that would both be functional and, operate towards meditation and that sort of thing. And setting permanent locations, including, inner temple rooms, like, with altars and all that to represent some stuff. It can connect to the wider universe, not just, knowing which directions are which. And you can, in theory, set up some sort of complex where you have caves connecting, in the darker time of the year, and you have, this is where these sorts of trees and flowers and all sorts of stuff will grow, and maybe you'll have this area for animals over here, and and you can arrange it by the directions and stuff like this. So there's a lot of interesting ideas that I would like to see put into action. We have an interesting arrangement herein of themes and ideas that will connect to the different seasonal points. A progress of meaning and principles to go through and reestablish in yourself. It's important to have a renewable sense of nature rather than like strip mining and stuff. I've been places where you get above the tree line and it's like everything is dead and probably going to be dead there for a while. And, we can get a lot more gold and other stuff out of the ground than we used to because we do this stuff. But this sort of says something about ourselves, too, what we do to nature. Obviously, if we're going to wake up and use our inner senses, it would be implied that certain modern food processes and stuff would not be used. And it's not criticizing people for being vegetarian, it's just the whole transformed and extracted stuff, particularly to imitate meat and dairy. Feraferia doesn't kind of step away from dairy, even though you can tell by how he looks that he would have been healthier without dairy. Now, I'm not saying that people aren't generally healthier, but you know what I mean. Certain races do better than others with dairy. But at the very least, regardless of your diet choices, you need to practice a kindness towards animals. I personally can't take part in what they do in the factories. The factory farming. We can learn to blend not only the balances of ourselves, but with the greater cosmos. We can help others have experiences, but it's not for us to make a point of increasing our controlling individuals through their fear, their guilt, and their shame. Yeah, those are about as basic of human drives as you can look at, but we want to deal with repression and suppression rather than cause it. Feraferia, with its 9 seasonal festivals, has divided up the 22 main types of environments. Thursday night at 10 p.m., Pacific time. Some areas may practice it also, but there is a reflection in Feraferia on those Thursday nights of, images of art, symbolic arrangements or items that represent nature. With each season are myths related to each season. There should be realizations that go along with that. Be devoted. Be natural. Be artistic. Be such that you can change your level of consciousness or have such an effect in others. Be one that, can find the joy, that accepts the spiritual existence, and that we can get what we need in nature. Things are available in every language. Certainly there's some stuff that comes through in spiritual experiences that's beyond what can be said or even thought. But we can learn to express these things appropriately and accurately, even still. We can bring about a positive vision. We can let our partners share in authority and the creative process. Svetlana, for Frederick Adams, was such an individual that did help compose things beyond mere conformity.